Welcome to the Right Time Podcast. The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Right Time. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. You can send us a tweet at the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed. That is at Bomani_Jones. All right, so there's this weird thing going on here, right? Where the Cleveland Cavaliers, we and the rest of the world seem to have figured out that LeBron James, good chance he's not going to come back to Cleveland at the end of this season. We're hearing a lot about him going to Los Angeles. Okay, so we're hearing about him going to Los Angeles. That kind of puts the Cavs in an interesting situation where, one, they just quickly saw that they weren't quite good enough to beat the Warriors, so they need to find a way to improve. And then on top of that, you have to add to this the fact that it looks like they might be losing LeBron, so everything is pressed on 2018. Got to get this set for 2018. Got to get this ready for 2018. Except the Cavs don't have a general manager. Yeah. So, like, while you're hearing about the Cavs maybe and going and getting Paul George, and while you're hearing about maybe the Cavs going and getting Jimmy Butler, the Cavs don't have a general manager, and they are thinking about hiring Chauncey Billups to run the whole basketball operation. So there'll be a general manager who is hired under him, and Chauncey Billups, I believe, does a fantastic job here with us at ESPN. I got no idea if he's got any idea how to run an NBA franchise. Like, apparently this has been a thing that Dan Gilbert has thought about for quite a while. I got no idea if Chauncey Billups is the guy to do this job. I also feel pretty confident, though, that this isn't the time to be trying to do this, what they call it, on-the-job training. The stakes seem kind of high for them to be playing this game. Like, really, what are they doing? What in the world are they doing? Now, one thing to note about Dan Gilbert. Dan Gilbert has owned this team now for, 12 and a half years. Dan Gilbert hasn't brought a general manager back yet on a second contract. Now, some of you wind up with a case like Chris Grant, who didn't do a good job. Danny Ferry didn't do a bad job, but Danny Ferry walked away because he got tired of dealing with Dan Gilbert, right? Like, he grates on the people who work for. Wow, what a great shock, right? That maybe, just maybe, Dan Gilbert is a hard guy to work for. Maybe, just maybe. Now, with this thing with David Griffin, the general manager that helped build the Cavs into the team that they are right now, part of what's interesting there is that Dan Gilbert does what Dan Gilbert tends to do is he'll wait forever. Like, think about that Tristan Thompson contract. You remember how long it took for Tristan Thompson to sign? Apparently, that's just the Dan Gilbert game. Wasn't the same thing with JR last year? Like, he will stretch this and stretch this and stretch this and stretch this. And he did the same thing with his general manager. But the thing with the general manager was apparently other teams are trying to holler at him. Dan Gilbert was blocking permission for those other teams to hire him and then ultimately let the dude go. I mean, I'd be salty myself, personally. I would be salty there. But that's where the Cavs are. LeBron James sent the shout-out tweet. Talk about, we got us one. We got us a championship. Anybody would like to hear the LeBron James unedited take on Dan Gilbert on this whole thing? Because I, myself, personally would love to hear the LeBron James unedited take on all of this. I mean, dude ain't even want to keep him. How dude not gonna bring David Gilbert back? I mean, David Griffin back. When's the last time you think LeBron James said the phrase Dan Gilbert? Yeah, your mans. That's him.
What do you call it, dude?
Yeah, dude. He's your mans. That guy. Like, I imagine how many times somebody tells LeBron a story about Dan Gilbert. He's like, psh, that guy.
First one is him.
Yes, what guy? That guy. That guy. So how does this go? Like, I'm trying to think of a team that's ever gone into a season with more, like, stacked up chaos, right? Because you could think about the 2003-2004 Lakers, for example. That's the Lakers year where they brought in Gary Payton and they brought in Karl Malone. But more important than that, that's the year with Shaq in the preseason dunking and screaming at Jerry Buss to pay him. Right? Like, that was a year where it seemed like everybody was going in knowing this thing is probably going to break up. But that was also a team that had already won 3 championships, but that team also had probably its best player at the time with a pretty significant legal proceeding hanging over his head. Like, that was the chaos year, right? With the Cavs, though, we got to assume that this year's the last year of this, right? We're hearing whispers that Kyrie will want to be out of there if LeBron is gone. We're hearing that LeBron is going to be gone. There's the possibility that they will make a trade that will involve bringing in a dude who probably will only be there for 1 year. You've got an owner and a star player who are invested in the same goal to get while the getting is good, but they don't like each other. And you're talking about bringing in a general manager or president of basketball operations or whatever who hasn't done the job before. And, oh, by the way, while we're talking about this, what you're going to do to get Paul George or Jimmy Butler might be a decision that you need to make by Thursday. I'm saying that on Tuesday. You might need to figure that out by Thursday. And if you don't figure it out by Thursday, you're going to have a whole lot to figure out by the time February comes, and that's the trade deadline. What are they doing? Like, what's the game plan here? And I got to say, myself don't really understand what Dan Gilbert is doing.
Is there a plan at all? Or they were just going to, hey, we'll figure it out. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Like, it doesn't seem like they really planned for this stuff. Cleveland knew that Griffin's contract was going to be up, and there was no real effort to try to bring him back. So that, as you mentioned before, Gilbert, he doesn't bring back his GMs, right? He doesn't resign his GMs once their contracts are done. So he knew for a while that he wasn't going to bring Griffin back, right?
Yep.
So why not plan for that? There are reports that Griffin was working as recently as yesterday on a potential Paul George or Jimmy Butler deal.
By the way, he's a better man than me. Because I'd have been hard to find, boy. I would have been hard to find. Like, I know you're not about to bring me back. I ain't calling them about no damn Jimmy Butler. Or I'll be like, hey, guys, we don't really want Jimmy Butler. How'd you like Kyrie? All you have to give us is Michael Carter Williams. I'd be out here on sabotage. Straight sabotage. Why not? Why not?
In regards to this, though, there was an interesting tweet that you actually had earlier today when it shows how much LeBron really isn't part of these talks.
No. He's not in charge here. And I guess I wonder, too, where Dan Gilbert becomes confusing. Not even confusing. I just wonder how much of this is like a matter of pride. And we'll talk more about this later. But is he just opposed to the idea of let me do something to make LeBron happy? Right? Like, because I feel like, and to be clear, I can't really blame Dan Gilbert on this, right? If Dan Gilbert's like, yo, this dude burned me before, I ain't never going to do nothing in the name of making LeBron happy. You might want to do some things in the name of making LeBron happy. You might. Like, I wonder what Dan Gilbert's hearing, because I guess the last time he didn't hear that that LeBron might leave. Maybe, this time he got to be hearing it. Everybody else is hearing it. And, by the way, as tight as LeBron likes to keep information, he wants us to know this L.A. thing. Because we gone through this 2 times with LeBron as a free agent where we had no idea what was going to go down. None. Everybody and their mama seemed to have a handle on it this time.
But the consensus with the LeBron L.A. thing is to keep the heat on Dan Gilbert, right? So that Dan Gilbert doesn't get comfortable and settled in with, hey, LeBron's going to stay.
Oh, no. The consensus I've got on LeBron in L.A. is that he wants to go to L.A. Like, I don't think you buy a $20 million house to put heat on Dan Gilbert. Right, and my man Pablo has done some stuff for ESPN the magazine about how, like, the next move for LeBron is Hollywood. And so maybe, like, getting to L.A. is the way to go, the place to be for trying to, obviously L.A. is Hollywood. But no, I don't think that this is just about to press on Dan Gilbert. I really, really don't. I think LeBron, if I had to guess, I think LeBron's out of there at the end of the year. The problem with using that as a press on Dan Gilbert is you may make too much of a press on Dan Gilbert. And Dan Gilbert is making a press on a 1-year move as opposed to like a 3 or 4 year move. Because if I'm Dan Gilbert, I'm pressing on a 1-year move.
No, that's what I meant, where like you create the urgency now and let it be known that, hey, look, I'm not really coming back here or interested to come back after this season, so you need to do everything in your power to make this work right now.
Yeah, but see, I don't think he's doing that I don't think it's for that reason that this is out. I just think it's out, right? Like, this is just the plan. I think it is. But I don't know what exactly they're supposed to do. All right, 888-729-3776. That's our telephone number. Coming up next, we got your phone calls. We're talking about what the Cavs need to do, what LeBron needs to do, even a little bit on the crazy Knicks. What's up, Shannon? You're listening to ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, Sirius XM Channel 80.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to The Right Time. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. Ian Begley of ESPN will join us next segment to talk about the madness with the Knicks. Ian Begley will join us at 5:30 Eastern. Right Time is brought to you by Upside. Now save big on travel and get a big gift card every trip you buy. You'll love Upside.com. Upside.com. 888-729-3776. That is our telephone number. We were just talking a little bit before about, like, the Cavs and what to do with LeBron. And somebody called in. We didn't put him on the air, but he raised an interesting question, which was, so, I mean, if you're the Cavs, why don't you trade LeBron? And, of course, everybody, like, dismisses that as being ridiculous. But if you don't think you could put together a team that's good enough to compete with the Warriors, now I'm sure they're going to convince themselves they can. But if they don't think that they can, any other time you got this superstar and you're not close, you go ahead and move him, right? Like, what would the trade market be for LeBron James? I'm just trying to think about this. Like, all the teams in the league, what would you be willing to give up in order to get LeBron James?
Kristaps Porzingis.
Oh, yeah, quick, right?
Did I say that fast enough?
But, like, let's say you're the Spurs, right? Do you put Kawhi Leonard in your LeBron James deal? You say no? Is it because of youth? Because I guess it's because of youth? That's what the Pacers need to do. It's like, hey, guys, I just want to let you guys know that we're thinking about trading Paul George, and we're willing to add him to a package, and you give us back LeBron. All right?
You miss every shot you don't take, right?
But how much satisfaction would Dan Gilbert get from trading LeBron? Right? From being the one to decide what happened to LeBron after LeBron made that decision on him. Like, I'm just really trying to get, if you found out that LeBron James is available, like, look, like, a point's going to come when we find out that Anthony Davis is available. And I think people are going to give up a lot in order to get Anthony Davis. We talked about that earlier. Guys rarely signed that second extension in a place where it hadn't gone so well after the first one, right? If the Pelicans are smart, you might be thinking about trading Anthony Davis like tomorrow. And then you go from there and figure out what it's going to be. And you know the things that people would be willing to jump up and offer Anthony Davis. What would you offer for LeBron James if he was out there right now? What would you give?
I think with LeBron, he does have the no trade clause, but we think about it too when we talk about Paul George and teams willing to do everything in their power to get him, although it may be for a season rental. Think about what those teams would even do for LeBron for that 1 year rental. Everything.
Think about this: if you're the Wizards, would you give up Wall and Beal?
I would give up one and everything else on the roster. I gotta have one or the other. It can't be LeBron and Otto Porter and them. Like, it has to be Beal or Wall and everything else.
I might let you have them both. I might. Tell you this, we're going to sell some seats. 888-729-3776. That's our telephone number. Let's hit the phones and talk to Cam from D.C. Cam, thanks for calling the right time.
Yeah, my question is about the Cavs and what they should do with LeBron. Has anybody thought of just that maybe they shouldn't go top heavy and maybe they should focus on the bench and get somebody that can actually, score or play defense instead of just giving the ball to LeBron and say, go make something happen, I'll just stand over here and wait for it?
Yeah, but why do you need that person to come off the bench?
You may not, but instead of spending all that extra money on J.R. Smith and Tristan Thompson, who gave you almost nothing except for a couple games, why not get more of that?
Well, I mean, you got a strategy for this? Because your whole idea is, I think they need a better bench. Okay, stipulate it. How you going to do that?
Well, first of all, you got to get rid of some of those bad contracts, including J.R. Smith and Tristan Thompson.
Okay. How you going to do that? Like, I feel like you came into the room and thought you dropped the big joker, and that was like the five of clubs. Like, we just say, I appreciate the call, but man, but what you know what they need to do? They need to get rid of them bad contracts and get some dudes on the team who can play basketball. Yeah. All right, 888-729-3776. That's our telephone number. Let's talk to Joe in Miami. Joe, thanks for calling the right time.
Yeah, you kind of got my guff there for a while, so I want to see where you're coming from. How in the heck did LeBron James hurt Dan Gilbert? I mean, all LeBron James did was run out his contract, decided to sign with someone else, and you thought the world had come to an end. Now, when he fulfilled his obligation to Miami, and he decided, there was hurt feelings, but the world didn't come in. Trust me, I'm driving down Biscayne Boulevard right now, and no one gives a damn. The world goes on, but Dan Gilbert holds grudges. I mean, my God in heaven, what in the heck is wrong with that man? He's got the greatest ball player that's probably ever played. And here's what's sad. Let's go back to our big three: Dwayne Wade, Bosh, and LeBron James. Dwayne Wade is now 35 years old and is playing $24 million. God bless him for that, because he needs the money so much, in a team that probably won't win 40 games this year. Bosh, God bless him, he can't play because because it's hard. And then here's poor old LeBron James. All he does is just give a city a championship and work his rear end off for the same team, and all he gets is grief. Something's not going on. Don't you agree with that? And I'll hang up and listen. And by the way, I'll be glad when the damn draft comes. It's going to be fun. Bye-bye.
Hey, Joe, I appreciate the call. And let me tell you, that's one thing, though. Like, there are people in Miami who are still salty about LeBron leaving, but this is a city that understands relationships are convenience. They're like, yo, he played his term. Okay. He wound up going somewhere else. But Dan Gilbert sure looks at it like LeBron James took something from him. There's no question about it. And Shannon, Dan Gilbert thinks he's the bigger man.
By allowing LeBron to come back, he feels as though he's the bigger man.
Yes, he feels like he allowed him to come back and make all that money for him. All that money for him. All right, 888-729-3776. DJ Mike Hitman, what's going on?
I don't care. Hey, Bo, I don't care what damn Gilbert do or LeBron James. It's the Boston Celtics. Y'all got to get Danny Ainge credit. He's a genius. And all he's doing is stocking up for these young boys who win championship and hang up banners for the Boston Celtics. Y'all ain't looking at that. He's getting old. The man is getting old. He got miles on them legs. And it's only a couple. He only got maybe 2 years. And remember, folks, this cat never had an injury. I ain't wishing no bad luck, but everybody getting a bad injury in the NBA. And Danny Ainge is a genius. You see Phil Jackson, he's shaking in New York. He want to trade his best player. So it's the Celtics. Y'all get ready. The Celtics finna run the whole NBA. Because them young boys is about to take over. And I got a feeling this. I'm thinking like Danny Ainge, we got money in our pocket. We taking that boy Fox. Woo! Roll time, baby. I just love this Celtics. I can't wait till the draft comes. Because all y'all people who hate the Celtics, get ready to have a nice handkerchief. Because we finna run the East. How we go, Bo?
All right, Mike. Yes, Shannon, go ahead and ask.
Two things. One, roll tide for the Celtics.
Yeah.
And more importantly, who hates the Celtics? I didn't realize we hated the Celtics now.
I do know this, though. Celtics fans kind of hate me. 888-729-3776. That is our telephone number coming up next on The Right Time. So are the Knicks really thinking about trading Kristaps Porzingis? We'll talk to Ian Begley of ESPN about that on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, Sirius XM Channel 80.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to The Right Time. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. All guests join us on the Shell Pinto Performance Line. Hope to talk to Ian Begley of ESPN in just a second about what's going on with the Knicks. 888-729-3776. That's our telephone number. All right, there we go. Ian Begley is here to join us now. Now, Ian, are the Knicks really considering trading Kristaps Porzingis, as we've heard?
Oh, I think it would take a monumental offer to get a deal done, but I don't think the idea is off the table. You know, they've talked to several teams over the last couple of days, I'm told, including teams ahead of them in the draft lottery. The Knicks have the 8th pick on Thursday. So, you know, when conversations are being had, I don't think you could ever rule anything out. If the Knicks wanted to rule it out, they wouldn't be having these conversations. I don't think a deal gets done. I think it would take some kind of crazy offer from another team to get Porzingis out of New York, but these conversations are happening, so at this point, you certainly can't rule it out.
Well, this seems like such an odd move because Porzingis seems to be the one glimmer of hope for the future, so I personally can't even imagine a deal that would make it worth it to him.
Totally agree. I mean, if you look at the Knicks for the last 3 years, the only reason this fan base has held on to any hope was because of, A, the draft pick that was coming, and B, the pick that turned into Porzingis and what he's done the last couple of years. So, you know, it doesn't seem logical. I think it would take, you know, multiple first-round picks and probably a young player on a cheap deal that was a starter, a rising star, And, those offers are hard to come by. So, again, I don't see this happening. But to me, it just speaks to where the Knicks are with Kristaps Porzingis right now. The relationship is icy. There's a lot of hurt feelings on both sides, on both Phil Jackson's end and Kristaps Porzingis' end. And this is how you get to a place where a couple days before the draft, you're talking to teams about trading your young star.
All right, we're talking to Ian Begley of ESPN on the right time. Now, you talk about the hurt feelings. We've heard about Porzingis skipping out on his exit meeting with the Knicks. Is it deeper than that?
Well, it's just about this dysfunction and the drama that Kristaps perceives to have happened over the last couple of years, particularly last season with, the drama off the court with, Carmelo Anthony, Charles Oakley, you name it. It happened last year. And also, the coaching staff switching things up numerous times. Defensive schemes, offensive schemes are being confusion on the offensive end about are they running the full triangle? Are they doing things the way Jeff Hornacek wanted them to? Is Jeff kind of changing the offense? That seems to change a little too frequently for Kristaps and other players in that locker room's liking. And I think that's what led to Kristaps' frustration. If he's looking big picture, he's seeing, how other organizations in the NBA, let's say the Spurs, the OKCs of the world, run things and run things well. And he's seeing how things, through his eyes go in Knick land, and he's worried about his future. So that's where the frustration comes from. That's why he skipped the exit meeting, and that's why we are where we are today with Kristaps and the Knicks.
Now, do the Knicks have their own levels of frustration, though? Because, again, in the NBA, you've basically got a guy you've drafted for 7 years. Correct.
So, yeah, I know they were upset about Kristaps skipping the exit meeting and how that was handled. I think that there's concern there because of that move and kind of what, if you extrapolate that and you think about a couple years down the line or you talk about a player's judgment, I think, there's concern there from an organizational standpoint. But, if you look big picture, Bo, this is one of the few things that have gone right for the Knicks in recent years. So, if you're going to lose Kristaps Porzingis, you're going to want to get something back for him. Because if things continue the way they've gone the last couple of seasons, I don't think Kristaps is going to stick around. I know people say that he's going to lose a lot of money if he turns down an extension from the Knicks, and, it's a big risk. But based on how he felt last season, I think if there's no change, no monumental change in the direction of this team, I could see him walking. So if you're the Knicks and you know that, I think you have to consider offers. And, I don't know where they go from here, but you have to at least think about it.
All right, we're talking to Ian Begley of ESPN on the right time. Now, it wouldn't be a Knicks discussion if we didn't ask what's going on with Melo. We got anything new there?
Nothing new. Status quo. The Knicks would still like to move Carmelo. I know that, and I'm sure, if they haven't been having conversations with teams quietly, which I would assume they have, those conversations will pick up in the coming days and weeks. What we don't know, though, is where Carmelo Anthony's head's at. I know towards the end of last season, regular season, he was leaning more heavily towards waiving that no-trade clause than he had in the past. People around him thought he was out. Now, obviously, things happen off the court for him, and I don't know how that impacts his thinking now. Does he want to stay closer to home? Does he want to stay in New York? I'm not sure, and I don't want to sound like a phony and try to speak for the guy, but I do know the Knicks are still motivated to move him. Don't know what the market is going to be for him, but they will certainly continue to have conversations with teams about trading Carmelo Anthony.
Now, you talk about motivation. Are we sure that Phil Jackson is motivated to keep this job? Because my first thought when I heard this is the kind of thing you do when you're trying to get yourself fired.
Yeah, that theory has certainly been thrown out there a lot. I can't say that I've heard, with any validity, anything to back that up from anybody in the organization. I don't think that's the case. I think Phil, based on what he said at the end of the season, saw a lot of things that were wrong with his team. He saw some friction between the players and the coaching staff, and he wants to rein that all in. And, maybe this is one way of reining things in with Kristaps Porzingis, talking to teams about dealing it. Maybe he's trying to, put the fear of God in Kristaps, and then also reining it in by dealing Carmelo and, according to Phil, bringing in players who can fit the way they want to play. Two-way players is what Phil Jackson said. So I don't get the sense that he's trying to get himself fired at all. I think he's trying to get his hands around a situation that he sees has gotten out of control, and, this is the way he's trying to do it.
All right, we're talking to Ian Begley of ESPN on the right time. Now, have the Knicks given any consideration to how all this makes them look to free agents? Free agents, we presume they'd be looking to sign to improve the team.
Listen, it doesn't look good. I can tell you that much. And I don't know how much Phil has thought about that. You know, I don't know him that well, but he's known as a guy who, you know, has a high esteem, to put it mildly. So I don't know if he would consider the fact that, you know, free agents could look at his actions in a negative light. I think he was asked that, if I'm not mistaken, at some point, and he said he wasn't concerned about how things playing out with Carmelo over the course of the season could impact how free agents look at the Knicks. I don't know, because I don't see it that way. You know, think what you will about Carmelo Anthony. He's a popular player around the NBA. You know, obviously, we all know he's very close with LeBron James, with Chris Paul, and that crew. And he has an influential role in the Players Association and with younger players around the league. So, you know, I have to think, and I have heard whispers that how things played out between Phil and Carmelo will certainly influence the thinking of some of the free agents on the market. And maybe not all the free agents, obviously can't speak for everybody, but I do think some guys will see the situation in New York, see that as a turnoff when it comes time to think about playing in New York as a free agent.
All right, last question, because I have a nervous Knicks fan here who heard Derrick Rose say how badly he wants to stay in New York, and that seems to frighten the Knicks fans. Do you think there's a chance they bring him back?
Listen, I think the Knicks and Derrick Rose, for both sides, they would be each other's secondary option. I think the Knicks have other options at point guard they're looking at, including, you know, players they may draft on Thursday. You know, Frank Ntilikina is a guy they have their eye on, the guard from France, so they could fill the guard role through the draft. I know people in the organization have batted around the idea of trying to pursue another trade for Ricky Rubio. You know, I think if nothing really comes to fruition for the Knicks, let's call them Tier A options at point guard, then, yeah, they would make Derrick Rose an offer and probably try to bring him back for a year with probably a team option second year to try to control the future there. I think Derrick, though, similarly, sees other opportunities out there as better fits for him. Maybe in Minnesota, maybe in Milwaukee, obviously in San Antonio. Everybody would want to play there. So I think, you know, if Derrick gets a call from those teams and the money is equal or maybe even a little less, he'd opt to go there instead of coming to New York. If that doesn't come to fruition, though, and New York is one of the few teams calling, I think he would come back to the Knicks because he did really enjoy living in New York and being in the Big Apple. You know, as upsetting and as not pleasurable what the experience was for playing for the Knicks, he did enjoy things off the court. So, again, I think if neither side finds a good option in early July, they could end up back with one another, but I'd be kind of surprised if that happened.
All right, that's Ian Begley. Check him out covering the Knicks for us here at ESPN. My man, thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Anytime, Bo. Appreciate you.
All right, now ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance, creators of the Name Your Price tool. Choose from a range of coverage options. Pick the price that works for you.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to The Right Time. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. All guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Thanks to Ian Begley of ESPN for joining us last segment. Chad Ford, NBA insider here at ESPN, will join us in our next segment to talk about the upcoming draft. Chad Ford will join us at 6 o'clock Eastern. Want to go to the 2017 ESPYs? You know, fly to L.A., walk the red carpet, go to the big party. How about going as the guest of this year's host, Peyton Manning? Make a donation to the V Foundation for Cancer Research of as little as $20, or you could win an incredible ESPYs trip and the chance to meet Peyton Manning at a rehearsal before the show. Go to ebay.com/ESPN to donate for your chance to win. That's ebay.com/ESPN. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends June 29th. Go to ebay.com/ESPN for contest rules. 888-729-3776. That is our telephone number. We were just talking about Porzingis and the Knicks. Howard Beck of Bleacher Report has come out today, and he said that, no, the Knicks are not really taking calls about Porzingis. So this gets fun, because does this mean the Porzingis people put the word out there to make it look like they're trying to trade Porzingis to help their case that they don't want to be in New York anymore? Because it's hard to think of a guy. What, is Marbury the last guy that we've seen really try to get out of a place on the first contract like this? Because just about everybody signs the first extension. The second one is where it gets to be dicey, but just about everybody signs that first extension. I can only name one guy off the top of my head that ever got to the end of that first contract, took the one-year tender, and then rolled out of town, and that was Greg Monroe. I can't think of anybody else. Like, guys typically stay there. Like, if I'm the Knicks, I get not panicking so much about Porzingis being unhappy because on one level, where is there for him to go? On the other hand, this dude seems like he really wants to go. But how do you get anything close to value for Porzingis given how low his salary is? You can't really do that unless you're going to package it with a bad contract and get somebody to take that. But I don't see how you're going to pull this off, right? I don't see how that would be helpful to the Knicks, and it wouldn't be helpful to the Knicks for us to know this because it looks like they're trying to get rid of the one glimmer of hope that Knicks fans have.
And two things here on the Porzingis and the possible guys or assets you would get in return. One, if you trade him, do you trade him for a win-now type of player, a guy that you can pair with Carmelo and make one last-ditch effort if you do, in fact, keep Carmelo? That's one. Or secondly, do you try to draft him for draft picks so that you can sell to your fans once again that we're building for the future and we'll have to identify yet another Porzingis-type guy that who's gonna be the franchise player of the future?
You sound so excited, Knicks fan.
Thrilled about this. Yeah, he's the guy. He's the one we're going to build this around. 2 years later, time to move on.
He still got Melo.
Like, here's the thing. It's not like I'm even that super duper high on Porzingis, but just have an idea of which direction you want to go. We used to joke about Philadelphia and trust the process and all of this, and it was a catchy name, but at least it seems as though they had a plan and had an idea, a direction in which they wanted to go. With the Knicks, we'll figure it out eventually, I guess.
888-729-3776. Let's talk to Eric in Denver. Eric, thanks for calling the right time.
Hey, first of all, I want to say I enjoy your show. I've been listening to you for about a year now. I think this whole Kristaps Porzingis thing is a result of Phil Jackson and the Knicks front office and how they treated Carmelo and causing this whole crap storm in the organization. I think Kristaps is just wanting to get out of there, being that they suck anyway. So why am I going to stick around here with all this chaos and we're not winning?
Now, I mean, I think there's something to that, and I appreciate the call, and that would be the most interesting thing is they tried to do all this to run down Melo so they could usher in the Porzingis era, and Porzingis is like, yo, you telling me it's different? What the hell is different? If you did it to him, you'll do it to me. Because it wouldn't shock me at all if Porzingis be jamming all that OG wine.
You had me thinking about something in regards to this whole Porzingis-Phil Jackson thing, because your belief is that Phil's trying to get out of New York, right?
It wouldn't shock me.
He's trying to get out of New York. So why not treat Porzingis badly, make Porzingis want to leave, and try to possibly trade Porzingis, which will ultimately get you fired in New York so that you can keep your money, right?
Well, just to be clear about Phil, what about this job looks like fun? Like, if you're him, what about this gig looks like fun? I think it's abundantly clear that he is in this for the money, right? And I don't blame him for being in it for the money. But one thing you got to remember is these guys who played before the salaries exploded, whenever there's a chance for a big check, baby, they are taking it, right? So here's the chance for the money. But what happens when you actually hate that job, right? Like, you get in there and you realize, oh, my goodness, I hate this job. You want to try to find a way to keep the money, but at the same time, you also don't want to do the job because, let us all be clear, most of us are in our jobs for the money, but we don't really love the job as much as we love the check. And if you could tell us that we can get the check without having to come to work, we would do that. Phil wants the check. I doubt that he wants to come to work because none of us would want to come to work if we were Phil Jackson. So how do you get the check? So, yeah, I wonder at every turn if he's doing things to try to get himself fired. Because nothing's funnier than somebody who's trying to get himself fired when the guy on the other side absolutely refuses to let you go. 888-729-3776. That's our telephone number. Anthony from Salt Lake City, you got about 25 seconds.
Hey, good afternoon, Bomani. Love the show. Love the show with Shannon. Well, my question was on LeBron. Why would he want to go to the Lakers when he would not only have to deal with the Spurs, and the Warriors out in the West? My thought process was always, LeBron wants to win rings, and he's got basically a walk in the park going through the East. Your thoughts, Bomani?
Well, I think that if he went to L.A., it would be about wanting to be in Los Angeles. I also have to say that was not the voice that I expected to be joining us from Salt Lake City, Utah. 888-729-3776. That's our telephone number. Coming up next, what's the latest on the NBA draft? We'll talk to Chad Ford of ESPN about that next on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, Sirius XM Channel 80.
Thanks for listening to the Right Time Podcast. Please come back tomorrow for more. And don't forget to listen to The Right Time with Bomani Jones from 4 p.m. to 7 Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.